After more than 20 years of hiring and developing and helping coaching clients build their seven-figure teams, today I thought we'd talk about specifically how to build a real estate team by hiring the right people. So how do you find and identify the right people for your team? At the very end of this video, as we go through this, I'm not only going to share with you how we hire the right people, but I'm also going to give you your own access to the AI prompts we use and using artificial intelligence to hire, as well as how to get access to your own disc profile so you can understand the behavioral style not only that you possess, but of people you might potentially hire. So before we begin and we start really thinking about when to hire and how to hire the right talent, the first we have to think about what is it we're trying to accomplish. So what is the end you have in mind? We don't just go out and start hiring people. The goal is that we think through what our gaps are. So tell me a little bit about where you are in your business and why you think hiring someone makes a difference. I remember getting into a coaching client situation where I'd gone out to meet with the client and we sat down and the client really felt like he needed additional agents. And with two assistants, we went through this process of doing what I call is a gap analysis or a missing persons report. And in this missing persons report, what we did is we made a list of everything that he felt he should be doing in his business. So what do we do before the transaction? What do we do during the transaction? What do we do if it's a seller? What do we do if it's a buyer? Once it closes or once it goes under contract, what are the activities that need to be done? And then we created a spreadsheet that showed, who does what in what order. As we went through there, what we identified was that all the things that this client wanted to do, there were multiple gaps and nobody was doing those activities. And so you should be doing things for clients, you should be doing things for your business that will help it grow, but you've just run out of bandwidth. And that's how we do a missing persons report. So then we identify who is it that's missing in this process. And is it an administrative assistant? Could it be handled by a virtual assistant? Is it a system or a technology that could do this on steroids? Or do we have people on the team already that could take these specific tasks on? We just haven't been clear about what needs to be done. So that's called a gap analysis. So we do a missing persons report, we do a gap analysis, and what we learned in this particular team that they were missing a listing agent, somebody who would focus on prospecting, going on listing appointments, and negotiating contracts. So once you identify who and what's missing from your team, then we can talk about what that person looks like. So in Patrick Lencioni's book, The Ideal Team Player, he talks specifically about how to identify people that have three really important characteristics. The first is, are they hungry? Are you really hungry? Do you need to eat? One of the questions you can ask is, who are you working for? What are the people that are relying on you to be able to generate income? And it may not be family, it may be other people that you're trying to serve in the community or people that you're passionate about. It could be little brothers or sisters, it could be spouses, it could be parents, but who are you playing for? What makes you hungry? What is it that is going to get you to do the hard thing? The other thing he talks about is humble, and that is recognizing that I know I have some gifts or talents that are good, but I also recognize I know I need to learn. And they're hungry and they're humble, meaning they're teachable and they're willing to listen to the things that you do well that have helped you create success. And then the last thing is smart. And identifying smart is kind of an interesting one because identifying smart is something you can test for. And that is, do they have the just life experience or the skills to be able to make good common sense decisions? Sometimes we do working interviews to identify smart, to see how people act under pressure, what happens when they get into a situation where they have to make good judgment calls. So be aware that when we're doing hiring for a team, that we not only hire individually, but we hire as a team. We want everybody on the team to be involved in the hiring process. If your team members are involved in the hiring process, what happens is that they feel a vested interest in the success of the person that you're bringing in. But if they're not hired as a team, then they feel like, well, they weren't involved in the hiring process, so they're not going to be involved in the development process as well. So the next thing we've done, so I want you to think about this. First, we've identified what's called a gap analysis. We've identified gaps. We did a missing person report to figure out who's missing in this process. And in this case, it's an administrative assistant or a listing partner. And then we do the job ads. So now it's time to write a powerful job ad that will identify that position. Now, we at Workman Success, we've created job descriptions for every position, but we've learned that with the introduction of AI, there are so many things that we can do to even write better job ads. And so we've taken our job descriptions, we plug them into our AI engines and say, take this job description and write it differently so it appeals to somebody that has the right disc profile or that has the right specific attributes that would make it interesting for them. And so I might say to my AI engine, write a job description for a client care coordinator for a real estate team. Include the daily activities, how we're going to win at the end of a day, and the requirements of that position, being a full-time position. I also want to make sure that the job description includes things like how to make sure that they have a high C profile, meaning they have attention to detail and that they can't go to sleep at night if their to-do list isn't done. As we write these job descriptions in our AI engine, it then takes and say, now create an ad for this and make the ad specifically for my LinkedIn, my job posting, my Indeed job posting, and my Wise Hire job posting. Make sure that the ad is written specifically for that audience so that people respond appropriately based on the job site that they're searching on. When you use AI to write that job description, what happens is it takes the intelligence of the crowd, or the wisdom of the artificial intelligence, and then brings them all together and gives you much more clarity on how you write your ads. What we found by using AI is it doesn't get to 100%, and it doesn't include things like the personality that you want written in the ad. So we make sure that our ability to develop relationships and the face-to-face interviews and the things we do on Zoom call makes a big difference in attracting the right people. Writing great ads and using AI is a big help. We might also take the same AI engine when we're looking to hire job descriptions for whether it's a listing coordinator or an administrative assistant and say something like this to the same AI engine. Now that I've written an ad for this position, now I want you to create a job description for this position. I would outline the 7 or 8 or 9 things that are real important. I would say now create an operations manual outline with the specific duties associated with each of the position, each of the activities that need to be done by this position. As the people read the ad and they look at the job description, it gives more clarity. They can feel and identify whether or not they'd be better suited for that position. We found by incorporating powerful job descriptions, writing right ads, and then going through and helping people understand what the job is, we attract a higher level of talent. The hiring process then goes something like this. We like to say that we hire slowly and we fire quickly. We want people to go through a process before they get hired. When the resumes come in, oftentimes we'll send them a survey. We'll then take the survey and we'll ask our AI engine to rate the person and the answers to the survey based on the job description we've written in the following 10 categories. AI will then come back and say it's an 8 out of a 9 or a 6 out of a 10 or a 4 out of a 10 in these different categories, and the overall candidate might score 86 out of 100, and that would be a good candidate for that position. It's fascinating to me how the artificial intelligence is changing the way that we attract, the way that we interview, and the way that we evaluate potential hires. In a most recent hire for one of our teams out of California, we had a job description come in. We did this exact same process. They hired the person came in, and within the immediate, like I'd say within 30 minutes of being there on their first day, they realized they'd identified and found the right client based on all of this criteria that we've laid out. As you go through and you use your AI engine to create your job description, you identify your gap analysis and where the gaps are, you write your job description, and then you write your ads for it. Now people start coming in, you can interview to those things. So bring the client in, bring the potential agent in, make sure you do a group interview, ask great questions, validate their disc profile. In our next video, we're going to talk more about how do we actually train and develop the positions for the team. So stay tuned right here. We're going to give you, right now, I want you to go look at the bottom of the video. I'm going to give you AI prompts that you can use for different job positions on your real estate team, and also how to identify the gaps in your business. A lot of people use different assessments when they're hiring individuals for different positions. I've heard of maybe 25 or 30 different assessments over my career, but the one that always comes back that is simple and is most commonly used is the disc profile. And so, for example, when you're hiring someone who you're not sure is going to be suited for the position, I want you to think about disc as it's not a personality test, it's a behavioral style. So how will this person behave naturally or when they're under stress? Everybody has a dominant and a secondary behavioral style, and understanding what this means for the position makes a big difference. The D stands for dominance. It means that someone who is assertive, they're confident, they're results oriented, they're typically direct and decisive, and they're focused on achieving their goals. A lot of our team leaders you would identify as a high D. Now, One of the things as I go through these DISC profiles is to make sure you understand that it doesn't measure work ethic and it doesn't measure integrity, which are two of the most important things when hiring any individual. And so it's just a behavioral style, how they're going to behave. It doesn't tell you who they are. When you're communicating with a DISC, for example, somebody who's a high D, I would want to communicate with them in a way that is straightforward so we don't come across as competitive or challenging. We want to make sure that we understand that when we're communicating with somebody that's a high D, that they want to get right to the point. They don't want to beat around the bush, and they want to understand that there's opportunities for them to grow and develop. A high I, on the other hand, if you're hiring buyer's agents, you'd be tempted to hire someone that's a high I. You got to be careful of these high I's, these influencers, because they all interview really well. They're the life of the party. They're social. They're enthusiastic, oftentimes very persuasive. They enjoy the building relationships part of the business, but it doesn't mean they can always close a sale. And so you have to make sure that you identify who they are and know that they may need development in going from relational to actual sales. Their communication style is a high I, as they're expressive, they enjoy engaging with people, they might use humor and storytelling to be persuasive, and they thrive on the ability to be interactive and to be part of the overall picture of where the team is going. The S's are some of my favorite people. The S's stands for steadiness, and it's the more amiable. They're patient, supportive, they're very relationship focused. You can't back them into the corner. They value cooperation and harmony. They want everyone to be treated fair. Oftentimes high S's make a great role in the keeper of the culture or the client care coordinators, the admins. When you add a high C to that, the high SC, that means they have a high attention to detail, but they also have this steadiness and this consistency about them that's attractive to the team. The high C, and let's talk about them for a minute, because if I'm hiring an admin, this is who I'm looking for, is I want someone who has a higher C than me. I don't look for people who are like me. A lot of the mistakes that we make as leaders is we hire people that are like us because they seem like us. We want to duplicate ourselves. Well, it's actually the opposite of that is what we're looking for. We're looking for somebody who is strong in the areas where we're weak, not duplicate us. So I want you to think about that as you're thinking about the hiring process. The C is analytical, they're detail-oriented, they're systematic, and they emphasize accuracy and quality to make sure they get it right. Oftentimes, when you ask a C what they've purchased, I just copy them instead of going and doing my own research because I know they've done the research, they built a spreadsheet on it, they've looked in detail on that. So as part of this video, we're going to give you a free DISC report and give you the ability to download it. So watch at the very end, I'm going to give you a series of resources, and one of them is going to include your own DISC report. Go through and understand who you are, and then share it with others. And let's see if you can determine if you've got the right people in the right seats on your team.